35-inch tires. Yep, you heard me right, 35-inch tires. That is exactly what GM will offer on the all-new, next-generation 2027 and newer Chevy Silverado ZR2 1500. And we have the spy shots to show you exactly how that will look like. I'm Alex Luft. You're watching GMAuthority.com. Let's get right to it.
MOTROLIX.
Now, as those who have been visiting GMAuthority.com probably already know, GM Authority has been reporting on the 2027 next generation Chevy Silverado for quite a while now. In fact, back in August of 2024 is when we ran our original report stating that the next generation Silverado 1500 is on the way for the 2027 model year. And it was at that point that we provided a few key details about the next generation truck, such as the platform that it will ride on and the launch timing. But today we got our very first spy shots of the 2027 Silverado ZR2 1500. So let's take a look at those right now. There it is. There is the prototype, and this thing looks large and in charge, meaning that, just look at it, quite a bit of ground clearance. That's the first thing that I see, at least, is the very generous amount of ground clearance. Of course, there is the telltale high-cut front fascia. That's also present and accounted for. And overall, we can obviously tell that this is a crew cab, short bed configuration, which is the only configuration in which the Silverado ZR2 1500 is offered. But take a look at one particular thing, which is the tires. These tires are not your typical tires. They are, well, maybe they are typical because these are, after all, the Goodyear Wrangler Territory MT tires, which is the same mud terrain tire that is used on the existing first generation Silverado 1500 ZR2. But unlike the current generation, this prototype is wearing tires that are quite a bit bigger than the one on the current model. So if you look at what the sizing here reads, it's 285/75 R18, which essentially translates to a 34.8-inch outer diameter tire. Round it up a bit and you get a 35-inch tire. So finally, the Silverado ZR2 1500 will go from a small tire, the 33-inch tire, to a proper 35-inch tire. That's the big news here. Now, there is something that I only noticed recently, and that is this. I'm not quite sure if you'll be able to see it, but right here, they kind of tried to rub it off the tire, it seems, but it seems to say TPC and then a set of 4 numbers. Now, TPC stands for Tire Performance Criteria, which essentially means that this tire was developed in conjunction with General Motors specifically for this vehicle application. So what that means is that this is the Goodyear Wrangler Territory Mud Terrain compound. The general tire is the same, but there are certain parameters of this tire that are unique to the 2027 Silverado ZR2 that we see here. Now, TPC spec tires, these slightly modified tires that work better with the overall vehicle and the overall chassis setup of a vehicle, that's been something that almost every GM high-performance vehicle and even some non-high-performance vehicles have been using and have started to use over the past decade. So what this essentially means is that the tire has been tuned to the particular vehicle that it's going to be used in this case, the Silverado 1500 ZR2. So in other words, this is not your typical off-the-shelf tire. This is the Territory MT modified specifically for this vehicle application by GM engineers working in conjunction with Goodyear. Beyond that, beyond the tires, we also can see that, let's take a look at the back here. There really isn't much to see here outside of, the stance. Very good, imposing stance. I like the way this thing looks, at least in prototype form. You can see that the fenders seem to be bulged out. I think this is just something that will be common to all 2027 Silverado 1500s, just much more muscular sheet metal all around. At the back, there is the corner step rear bumper, but there's also the quad-tipped exhaust that is very similar. It's not the same, but it is very similar to what we already see on the Corvette C8 Stingray as well as on the Corvette C8 E-Ray. And of course, we can see the spare tire neatly tucked in right there. So there must have been some work that went into actually modifying this undercarriage area to actually be able to fit a 35-inch spare. And then there is the tow hitch receiver and your typical license plate cutout along with the trailering attachments here. Now there is one key detail that I would like to show you, and that is this: Multimatic DSSV dampers present and accounted for on this prototype. That's the same setup that we see on the current Silverado ZR2 1500. But in the case of the 2027 model, I do expect that the damper will be retuned to accommodate the larger tires. And so there it is, our very first look at the 2027 Silverado 1500 ZR2 35-inch tires. I can't tell you how happy this makes me because on the current model, it's just a little bit of a process to fit 35s. Well, this prototype right here indicates that a set of 35s will be on offer. I'm not quite sure yet if the 35 is going to be the standard tire or if it will be offered as an option and a 33-inch tire will be offered as standard. I'm not quite sure how GM is going to play that out, but for the time being, at least we know that there is a 35-inch tire on the way for the Silverado ZR2. And that's the way, in my opinion, that it should be. For GMAuthority.com and the MOTROLIX Network, I'm Alex Luft. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe and to follow, and I'll see you in the next one.
MOTROLIX.